Nightreign has had a bit of a polarizing reception. In fact, the reaction I'm seeing reminds me of the days of Fallout 76, where those who bought it, who continue to play it, they'll justify it all and say, look, the game kind of sucks, it doesn't do anything well at all, it is lazy, most of the online elements are half-assed, it doesn't really work, it's all a bit of a mess. But I'm having fun with my friends, so none of that matters. They can't really point to anything that's actually good about it, but they'll claim, no, well, it's still fantastic because I'm having fun, I'm playing with people, don't you have any friends? Why aren't you having fun too? It sort of boils down to that. They can't actually articulate what is positive about the game, and that's what it kind of feels like. Now, I think the reaction overall has been positive from a gaming perspective, where I was kind of worried that too many people were drinking the FromSoft Kool-Aid, where it's like they've made, over the years, fantastic games. I love pretty much all of them, from, when was it, 2009 maybe onwards with Demon's Souls. So many incredible games, they release them in pretty quick time if you compare it to the rest of the industry, which is just a total mess. It takes everyone half a decade to release crap, half-assed recyclements of previous entries, like the Ubisofts and so on. But you get From Software releasing great games pretty regularly. At least I think up until now, they've kind of slowed down a little bit. But I've been kind of happy to see that people aren't just going, no, you can't criticize From Software. They're immune. They're like Larian, these other studios. Everything that they touch turns to gold. And there's a reason for everything. They might be releasing this lazy asset flip with no effort really to it for $40+, but there's so many positive things about it because the developers, an inexperienced team is working on this and they're learning, they're going to be doing great things, blah, blah, blah. There's a few people saying that, but I don't think it's that many. I think most are seeing Nightreign for what it actually is, which is pretty lazy, not a good direction for the company, and hopefully there's not too much more of this. I was going to say hopefully a one-off. Unfortunately, that's just not the case, because we know that Duskbloods is coming out for Nintendo Switch, and that will also be multiplayer-focused, online-focused to some extent. That's part of the reason I'm kind of concerned. If Nightreign was just a once-off, I'd probably just ignore it and give them the benefit of the doubt. To me, it's the start of maybe a worrying direction. So I'm glad to see people criticizing Nightreign. I hope this is just a blip for From Software. They realize maybe this was a mistake, we experimented, bad idea, let's just get back to what we do best. I really hope that that is the outcome, because if they have a lot of success with Nightreign, and then potentially Duskbloods as well, and then they just keep moving in that direction, then we're just going to lose something. Again, I think that's the reason to be concerned with Nightreign, and potentially Duskbloods and so on as well, is if From Software have a lot of success, and maybe they introduce microtransactions to buy classes or characters and so on, which I've seen rumors that could actually happen with Nightreign, and that will probably happen with Duskbloods and so on as well. If they have a lot of success there, financial success, I don't think From Software are completely independent, they do answer to someone, could be the end of the good times, at least as good as they are now. We could get less of the games that we want from them, and the industry as a whole is going to get worse. So it's good to see people just calling this game out for the most part, but there's still some people who just can't let go. There's still some people who will just defend From Software no matter what, and I can do the whole thing in an ungenuine manner where I say, oh, if people are enjoying it, they're having fun and so on, then that's great for them. I don't really care. My stance is just, I don't want this game to do that well, because we're going to get less of the good stuff. Again, the industry is going to get worse. It's not a good thing. The EAs of the world would absolutely love From Software to go in more of a multiplayer live service direction, because then they can keep telling us that's what gamers want. They don't want single-player experiences, good crafted level design, great content. That's a thing of the past. We don't need it. And you do get some people like this. When did FromSoft become Nintendo, bro? Do you really want a Pokemon Black and White situation, and for FromSoft to become current-day Game Freak? You really want to align yourself with these types of people, huh? I don't even know what that really means. I had to read this a few times to even understand what he's talking about, because my perception of Game Freak is they just release the laziest Pokemon games possible and put in absolutely no effort, maybe to meet deadlines from Nintendo. I don't really know what they're doing, but the games are just so repetitive. I honestly have had, of all the big franchises out there, Pokemon doesn't grab me anymore outside the nostalgic days of Red and Blue and so on, because it's just the same game every single time and they don't change anything up. I don't think that From Software are guilty of that. I guess the comparison is, oh, so you just want them to keep making Dark Souls and never change? That's what you want? Oh, pathetic. But I haven't seen that. In fact, I thought From Software were going in a pretty good direction. Sure, the Dark Souls games, especially when you get to 3, you can probably see maybe they're running out of steam with new ideas. They need to mix it up. The answer to that is not a multiplayer-focused asset flip of Elden Ring that feels lazy. I don't think that is the big experiment that is pushing in the right direction, imagination, new things. Not really. It just feels like a cash grab. I think that Sekiro was a great sign of them trying new things, even Bloodborne as well, where they took their strengths and they just changed up the gameplay. I think that's a really cool thing. I think they could do that in other areas. We've seen other Souls-likes where maybe you create more of a shooter, but with the Souls formula that they do so well. You could argue that Armored Core 6 was kind of that kind of style. I did enjoy that. Maybe not as much as the Dark Souls games, but that was experimentation that I could get behind, not this. And he includes a post here where someone said, nah, low-key, kind of hope it doesn't do that well, referring to Nightreign, and From stops doing multiplayer-focused games. Now, I actually completely agree with this. I'm not going to do the whole fake thing of, oh, I'm glad people are having fun and enjoying themselves, but I disagree. I think it's just a load of crap. I think most of the people playing it and enjoying it, some of them might just want more Elden Ring and they'll take anything that they could get, but I think almost all those people would admit they would have much preferred a single-player focused DLC, or even a new game with a lower budget that experiments but is still single-player focused and is more of like a Bloodborne or a Sekiro or something else. They don't really want this, but some people don't want to admit it because, oh, well, then it's criticizing the gods. It's criticizing From Software. They know best. We can't say anything bad. I don't think anyone really wants this. And even if you are a live service fan, I don't think that you really need Nightreign either. There's plenty of other games out there from devs who specialize in multiplayer-focused games, don't totally drop the ball on communication inside the game with your teammates and all the other online elements that From Software just don't seem to do well. It doesn't seem to be their thing. Anytime I've tried, anecdotal example from me, but anytime I've tried anything online at any of the Souls games, it's a disaster and it's unfun because it's laggy and so on. But even for people who've enjoyed it, I think it's still a lot weaker than other games. This isn't the sort of experimentation that anyone wants. And that's why it just feels like a cash grab sort of thing. It's like you've done so many creative things as a studio and you decide to do this. It just feels like you're copying other types of games, other genres to sort of cash in. And sure, they don't have the cash store. It's not really a live service because they don't have a roadmap potentially, but there's definitely been those rumors of actually including characters that you can buy and skins and things like that. The door is actually open to that from some rumors I've seen. So not necessarily that it's not a live service. That could definitely happen and it could be a big cash cow for them. And so this person said at the end here, you really want to align yourselves with these types of people who would dare to say that they want Nightreign to fail? Are you that negative that you want games to fail? Oh my goodness. I don't see the problem. I love the majority of From Software's games, those titles where they harness their strengths and they're great, the Dark Souls, Elden Rings and so on. I just want more of them. I don't want this. And I know if this game succeeds, and it kind of has from a sales sold perspective, but that was always going to happen with the Elden Ring name. That's the pedigree that they built up because they produced an incredible game that so many people bought, positive word of mouth with the original Elden Ring. So it was just going to sell no matter what. There's plenty of bad sequels to movies that do well, not because they're good, but because the original just got people excited. It doesn't mean that that product is actually good. Like, it doesn't mean Nightreign is good because it sold 3 million copies or whatever it is. If they release another one like this, it could sell next to no copies because this game was crap, and now they've lost that goodwill. So it is a success from a copy sold, but we need to see the ongoing player numbers. Over time, it could be looked at as a bit of a failure, regardless of the money that they've made up front. I see nothing wrong with saying, I hope that this game fails. I don't want the studio to fail. I want them to release great games and just move on from this. So trying to treat it like, oh my god, if you have this opinion, you're aligning yourself with these people. Come on. And someone says, brother, if all of us just collectively agree that it's okay to publish low-effort games, that will make that the norm. FromSoft was one of the only game studios that made consistently good and unique games. Now there's a movie, a Nintendo exclusive with its own suspicions, and this shit, which is by no means bad, just not the level of quality that we've come to expect as consumers of FromSoft. If you don't say something and you do not vote with your wallet, you will enable FromSoft to go down this trajectory of profit and catering to mass consumption over making genuinely great games. And that same guy comes back with, I do not believe that for a second. Nightreign is a side project being directed by a new director. Now this isn't new, it's not like every FromSoft game has had Miyazaki as a director and he's finally handed off, someone else can experiment. I mean, Dark Souls 2, plenty of the big Dark Souls DLC projects and so on were not helmed by Miyazaki. So it's not like other teams can't make a Dark Souls-like. In fact, I would take something of the quality of Dark Souls 2 over Nightreign any day. In fact, I'd be excited. I would have been ecstatic and I would have bought it, even if that game is lower quality. Because that's how unique the From Software games have been and how above most of their competitors they've been in this kind of space, kind of action-y combat games, is even Dark Souls 2 is miles ahead, even if it gets criticised a lot. And it's well ahead of something like Nightreign. So it's a shame we couldn't have gotten something like that, even if it was more experimental. They should let their in-house talent make games to improve their skills. Nothing wrong with that. What is this cope about how, oh, well, there's inexperienced developers at From Software, so they need to make some weird multiplayer game that has nothing in common with their core games to improve their skills? I'm pretty sure if you wanted them to improve their skills, it would make a lot more sense to do more of a regular Elden Ring DLC, or just make another game in the style of other Dark Souls or Soulsborne games. Why would they be doing something completely different that is going to give them none of the skills to make a single-player project in the future? And that's why I'm worried, because it doesn't really make a lot of sense to do this as just a one-off experiment if you're improving skills. So it suggests more to me that it's a new direction. The Duskbloods does not help with that. It suggests a new direction, a new path. The Duskbloods is basically going to be 2026's Bloodborne. Not that the game is actually like Bloodborne. Exactly, it's nothing like Bloodborne. It's another multiplayer-focused title. What does that mean? We still have barely any info on the game, and Miyazaki himself is working on that. Okay, so that ruins this other argument. But on a Nightreign is only like this because it's another director. Okay, but then you've got the Duskbloods, also multiplayer-focused, and as you admit, Miyazaki is working on that too. So I don't get the point. I expect that to be a good quality game, and then their next really big game will probably be multi-platform. But when's that going to be? Because if Miyazaki's working on the Duskbloods, and that comes out, next year, maybe later this year, surely it's going to be another 3 years before that next big game. The big issue I see is, it's not just like people are randomly targeting some multiplayer game and it's called Nightreign and they're criticising it. Millions of these games come out. It's because we actually are losing something. We're getting Nightreign instead of what it could have been a real Bloodborne type game, a single player focused game on PC and so on. Even if it was on Nintendo Switch too, I'd be fine. I'd buy one to play their next game, but it's not going to be a regular traditional From Software game. It's going to be something else. So we are losing something here. In fact, we're potentially losing multiple games because of these experiments apparently. Like, it's not just a random experiment, a bit of fun out the back, and we still get our regular supply of traditional From Software games, the next Sekiro or whatever we could have gotten. Like, we're losing that, and we're probably not going to get anything else for 2-3 years at a minimum. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe these teams are tiny and they've actually been hard at work at something more traditional. If they do that, thank you very much. Happy to be wrong. I mean, we've still kind of lost something because we could have got more DLCs and so on for Elden Ring or whatever, but maybe they have more people there, more teams working on games that I'm aware of, but I don't really see it. I think it may still be a while until the next big thing, as evidenced by the long wait, I think, between whatever we got. I think it was Sekiro and then Elden Ring. That was probably the biggest gap in a long time for From Software. It feels like we're going to get that again after the Duskbloods comes out. It's going to be a long wait for the next one. And we don't know what it's going to be. Is it going to be totally single-player focused? Maybe, because Elden Ring did so well, they'll want to follow that up properly. But it could also be that there's a whole bunch of multiplayer elements in there, as evidenced by this new direction. So it's hard not to be worried. I'd be just as worried if Larian came out and said, hey, look, we had a lot of fun with Baldur's Gate 3. However, we're going to experiment now in the next game. It's sort of going to be a CRPG, but it's also going to be a battle royale, and we'll use the same engine we made BG3 on, but it's going to be a totally different game. I'd be extremely concerned. I wouldn't be saying, no, trust in Larian, it's all going to be totally fine. I think a lot of people would be very concerned. So it's the same for From Software. As for the movie, don't care about the movie, don't even care to talk about it. Whatever, is it even a From Software thing, or is this their owner or publisher who just want to do it, and From Software said, okay, sounds good, maybe it'll raise the profile of the game. I don't think that's really a big deal. I don't think the IP, it's not even story-focused enough from my perspective. Some people dive into the lore and really get into it. I don't care that much. If there's a movie, that's fine. That's the least of my worries. This same person, he keeps singling out anyone who says anything negative. Like, you're crazy for saying anything about Nightreign. Do you want to be associated with these people? He says, look at this guy. And the person just said, I care. I want to see everyone hating on this abomination. LMAO, make From Software great again. I mean, I kind of agree that the person's obviously exaggerating for good humor. Who cares? Or this one, no, we need to announce it. They can't strip away everything that made us love the Soul series and get away with this shallow piece of media. My brother in Christ, don't you ever forget that the Sekiro combat we've been waiting to return is coming back on this shit, and don't even get me started on Bloodborne 2. Fuck this game, shame on you. English was a bit muddled, but I get his point. He wants Sekiro combat to come back. Wouldn't it be great if we get a Bloodborne 2? Again, the language is kind of aggressive, but I agree with this point, really, that we're wasting our time with these Nightreigns and so on. It's just slop. We want to get the good stuff from Software. That is the reason they're popular, is their strengths. All those other games harness their strengths, not this. So I'm not just going to go, oh no, let them experiment, it's all a whole lot of fun. I'd rather be critical, because if we're not, this is how you get these big companies and they go off the deep end very, very quickly. Because it wasn't that long ago that you had your Blizzards, your Ubisofts, your BioWare, who were the titans releasing great games one after the other. You thought they could do no wrong. These were the companies where you thought, if they release something, I just buy it. I don't question it, I just buy it. That was definitely me with From Software until Nightreign. Anything they did, I was going to be very, very interested in. And I was barely going to do research. I didn't want to spoil it for myself. I'll just go ahead and buy it. And I almost certainly know I'm going to have a great time. But those companies I mentioned didn't just drop off. They sunk to the bottom of the ocean, and they're now an embarrassment for the most part. And that can happen extremely quickly. The reason it happens is the company name doesn't really matter. It is the people who work there and the culture of the company and their ability to actually hire talented people. Once they lose their reputation, that all goes out the window, and they can never really come back because their reputation is tarnished. None of the good people want to work there. We saw it happen. I'll give another example. Arcane Studios. There was the team that made Prey. They did some other games. Fantastic. Prey's one of the best games that I've ever played. And what happened is, after that game didn't do so well commercially, Bethesda, the publisher, really pushed them to make live service games and said, no more of these immersive sims. They don't sell. You're going to have to make a live service. And what happened is, none of the people who worked at the company knew really anything about live service. Probably kind of like From Software, to be honest, with Nightreign and trying to do roguelikes. It's not really their strength. So with Arcane, they're forced to make Redfall. It's not going well because no one who works there really knows what they're doing. The good people leave because they want to make immersive sims. They didn't sign up to make Redfall shite live service. So they're gone. So you're left with a company who don't really have any skills. They're struggling to hire new people because, well, if I'm a talented live service developer, multiplayer developer, Arcane's not the sort of company I'm looking at to work for. So it just ends up the whole company's a mess. They've got no talented people to work on this stuff. Everyone good is left. And that's the end of the company, the studio, basically. They're gone. That's what can happen. We've seen that with Blizzard and again, BioWare. Like, who's going to work at BioWare who knows what they're doing? What an embarrassment. Who wants to have Veilguard or next Mass Effect on their resume? You're just going to get laughed at. So I don't want to see that fate be what ends up happening to From Software. Obviously, they're far, far away from that, and Japanese studios, it might be a bit different. As far as I understand the culture, people stay at their jobs longer and maybe they don't leave as much like they do in the West these days. Just totally different worlds, business worlds. But still, I mean, they have this high pedigree. I think with Nightreign, it's definitely been tarnished slightly. Even if it's sold well, even if it has somewhat positive reviews on Steam, they're not that positive. It's 72%. Even Veilguard was around that. Starfield was around that for the longest time. That doesn't really mean anything. It's just not like the game's a huge disaster and it's like the next big thing to laugh at. It's not really that level, of course, but I still think they've tarnished their reputation somewhat. There's people on the Steam forums coping with this, like, why do people want to hate on Nightreign so much? Most people, sensible answers. They're just saying the truth. Looks like rubbish, asset flip, lazy. I don't even care about the asset flip that much. I think that's fine with From Software, how they reuse stuff, and that's why they don't take 5 or 6 years to make a game. Not the biggest issue, it just feels lazy. It doesn't feel like they handcrafted a whole lot of great content. It doesn't have the level design. It's just the same old areas. That's my problem, and I just point it out because people point to that asset flip criticism and pinpoint that and go, aha, see, you don't know what you're talking about. Asset flip, they've been doing that for the years. People are just sort of saying that they're looking for a word for slop, basically, that this game is a low effort. And it is. It definitely shows, but it's for a number of different reasons. And there's more of this. Why all the hate? Devs have been open from the start and in interviews about the game. We all know by now that Souls-type games are brutal and challenging. That's a straw man. People aren't criticizing this because it's challenging. It's a million things. Challenge isn't the reason. Unless you're talking about challenge, because a lot of it's designed for 3 people, you have to have other people with you, but there's no communication methods, because the whole thing's a badly designed mess, basically. Maybe that's what people are talking about, but it's not specifically the challenge. Again, I just want this to be sort of a wake-up call. From Software are not immune to just going down the wrong path, game-wise, making these mistakes. They talk about experimentation, but it feels more like they've been chasing trends, and it's not a one-off. They're doing it with the Duskbloods as well. So I don't think enough people are realistically going to vote with their wallets. Maybe the Duskbloods will be different, because buying Nightreign for $40 versus shelling out for a Nintendo Switch 2 and buying that is a bigger investment if you weren't already going to get a Nintendo Switch 2. So maybe Duskbloods will suffer a little bit if it doesn't feel like a must-play. Because if it was a genuine Bloodborne 2, at least in everything but name, I'd definitely buy it. Like, immediately, it'd be no question. But it's not going to be that. It's going to be something else that doesn't sound or feel that great. This multiplayer focus, just not focusing on what they're really, really good at. I hope that this experiment does end, that the feedback, seeing that they're going from probably number 1 developer in a lot of ways that people look to, and anything, like you see that From Software logo on the screen at a showcase, those E3 style events, and everyone just stops, and this is what we've been waiting for. I remember that with the Elden Ring announcement and so on. Like, it was huge. Like, everyone is glued to their seat, glued to the screen. That will go away if you keep doing this crap. People will question it, and you'll lose a lot if you lose that pedigree. Like with Blizzard, people used to pay to go to BlizzCon, pay for a marketing event. Now they're just laughed out of the room and no one respects them. So you've got a great thing going. Don't blow it chasing these trends potentially, or if we're in good faith experimenting, please get back to what you're good at. Experiment a little bit like you did with Sekiro and similar games, Armored Core 6. I think that was a good direction. This is too far. People are seeing it now that Nightreign has released. And you've got to see it as a miss, get back to what you're good at. I hope that happens, and I hope the fans don't drink the Kool-Aid too much and hold them to account and get them back to their best. Thanks for listening. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.